to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. And I want to begin our journey before we get into the new album in your career by something I ask first and foremost to everyone. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed so much about all of us, especially musicians. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you do things today?
Um, I feel like I got through it by doing a lot of work, like not necessarily busy work, but whether it's like, a lot of us did kind of the online recordings or everybody records themselves at home and then somebody submits that. I did a lot of those things. Um, and I kind of had just a lot of projects that I tried to do to keep busy. Um, in hindsight, I don't. I think we just did the best we could and tried to get through it. Um, Coming out of it, though, I think what has been, I think the best thing is like I'm as serious about the music as I ever have been, and I love it, probably more. Um, I don't, but it's the collective, it's the collective, product or the process of the music that I think is more important. And so some things on the daily or performances or things, I think it's all that just to say, like, there's a lot of that stuff that I don't put as much stock in, or I don't take myself as seriously in some circumstances, because I know that, first of all, I don't think the founders of that, it was a lifestyle. It was their process. It was an everyday thing. And that's kind of helped free me up when I create, and just allow me to be a little more in the moment and accept what I do rather than harshly judge it all the time.
For sure. So before we get into the new album, I want to begin with take me back to your beginnings. How did music, how did jazz, how did all of this begin for you?
Sure. I grew up in a musical household. My parents, I actually grew up in the state of Kansas, and small town Chapman, Kansas, in between Salina and Manhattan. My parents were vocal music teachers, and both good pianists. And so, while they didn't really, my dad kind of improvised some, but I would say it was like on hymns or like Tin Pan Alley tunes, and I wouldn't call it necessarily jazz, but I think that there was a little bit of a kind of improvisatory element to what he's doing. Um, and so, a lot of the music that I was listening to early was like a lot of music, or excuse me, musicals. Uh, they were opera singers, so we listened to a lot of that. So not exactly like the kind of music that I listen to and play now. Um, I studied piano pretty early, learned classical music. Um, but kind of in high school, I didn't want to play music. I uh, was very much into sports. I was a pretty good golfer, and I ended up getting a golf scholarship to Fort Hays State University. And music was just something that I kind of did on the side. And long story short, I played for a couple of years at Fort Hays, and I was involved in music, but it wasn't my major. But kind of had a I don't know, awakening, and just realized, like, man, this is what I want to do. And a couple people out there really helped shape me. Uh, Teacher Brad Dawson, I took some improv lessons from him, and part of the thing was, like, every week you had to listen to a couple of different recordings, and this was really great for me because I just did this. And then, since we're in Kansas City, one of my dear friends, Clint Ashlock, he was out there at the same time, and he was a couple of years ahead of me in school, and so it was very cool because he would just be like, "Hey, you're coming over to my house, and we're going to listen to this music," and I just, that was so formative for me, and ultimately kind of helped me decide, like, this is what I want to do. So no jazz degrees out in Fort Hays. Got a classical piano degree that helped me learn how to practice. Moved to New York after I graduated and got a master's at New York University. Really loved being there, and that's where I kind of started, I think, to get my stuff together, so to speak. From there, I moved to Colorado, the Denver metro area. Worked there for a lot of years. Also pursued a doctorate at the University of Colorado. And I've kind of been here since about 2000 and in that area since about 2007 or 2008. So,
Do you remember the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away? That may have galvanized that desire to become a musician or just really move you?
yeah, there, I don't know if it's still happening, at least in its original format, but sometime in high school, I had this older couple who, and he kind of played some jazz piano, and I didn't know what he was doing, but I kind of would hang around and just watch. But they took me to a couple of shows at the Topeka, I think it's called the Topeka Jazz Workshop or something,
Uh-huh.
and that used to be like they do like a 3 gig run where they do like something in Kansas City and maybe Missouri and then Topeka. But I heard a couple of things there, and I was like, man, this is cool. And that was one of them was a pianist, Derek Smith. I remember hearing him with Bob Bowman and maybe Tommy Ruskin or Todd Strait at that time. I don't know, but anyway, it was. And then another one that really got me in college is I got to hear Frank Mantooth and Bob Bowman and Tommy Ruskin. And Brad Dawson and this saxophone player Kim Park, and that was really cool. Just that energy was like, man, this is, I want to be around this. I want to do this. So
I remember my real baptismal in live jazz came in the bowels of the historic Majestic Steakhouse there on Broadway. And Tommy was playing the drum kit, and Bram Winans was on the keys, and he came over and he put like bottles in between his fingers and put it up, and Tommy went to this just did this an elaborate drum solo on these bottles, and I was like, that is amazing. But Tommy always had this level of composure and panache about him. I always loved watching him interact with groups, and I read up on him after he passed, and I wanted to get a better insight because I always felt like he was bigger than what that, not that Kansas City was anywhere not near a big large grade city. It just seemed like he would have been somewhere else. Apparently Stan Getz offered him a gig to get out on the road, but he wanted to stay home. He wanted to be in the Midwest. He liked the comfort of it. I think he was a family guy. So anyway, it was there was an offer on the table.
wow, I didn't know that. That's really cool. I
Yeah.
mean, not surprising, but
Right.
yeah, wow.
So when you brought him up, I just remember that was when all of these ideas, and then I started listening to. There was a local show in Kansas City on KCUR, Mike Pettengale, Dr. Mike, and he had Jazz in the Night, and it was one of the greatest shows ever. I always remember his proclivity for playing Hank Mobley, but he always just had this broad spectrum. Marion McPartland, of course, she had her show. So anyway, but I remember that era of Tommy Live, and it was so cool, man. You
Very
know?
cool.
Yeah.
Very.
So so when you decided that you were going to become a musician and that was going to be your pursuit in life, you grab it by the reins and you're dreaming about what your life is going to obviously be like as a musician. And then you go to New York and then you become a musician and you're in this world. What's been the bit difference between the dream of what you thought it was going to be like to play music professionally and to actually live this life of being a musician?
That's yeah. I think I was lucky, when I started out on this path to have some people really spell it out for me as far as like how it was for them and just like, hey, you know, you might see, let's call them the one percenters in jazz that are like jazz famous and, flying around on airplanes and playing stadiums. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. your life is probably going to look different than that. And so that was cool. For me, I think as I did it more, like I did some time in Denver where it was like I was paying my rent just playing gigs. And that was cool. Like I liked it, but I eventually kind of got to the point where I'm like, man, I really hate playing weddings. I really hate doing the private background music thing where no one's listening and then they make us eat our lunch in the alley or eat our dinner like, behind where no one can see us. And so for me, I think one of the things that changed was I think like academia was a way for me to like, I'm pretty lucky in that I pretty much primarily just play jazz. And I really respect, like I have some good friends living in New York. I was just talking to one the other day and he plays on Broadway and he does all of these things and I think that's awesome. For me, what works the best for me and what makes my heart sing is just to kind of focus on this kind of music. And so I did some things to set myself up so that I could do that.
So you're from rural Kansas, so to speak. You've been to New York. You're in between two cities now. You've probably seen a lot of action on stage and been around a lot of veterans and elders. What have you learned over your travels and your journeys with all kinds of different esteemed musicians? What is it that you've gleaned that you pass on to younger players now?
I think the most impactful experiences for me from those musicians that we're talking about is like the sense of community and the willingness to give you time. Um, I guess one that's like fairly recent. I guess it was about a year ago, but we did some gigs. Well, yeah, I'll go with this one. We did some gigs at the Denver Jazz Festival, or a gig with Charles McPherson, a couple sets, and it was, I've done enough of these where you learn the music and you show up and you're cool and you're nice, but like, this he first of all he's played with everybody and like played for so long. Like I'm gonna definitely give this person his space. I'm gonna let him know that I know the music and by how I play, and I'm gonna be receptive to whatever he says. But I'm also I kind of play it a little slowly. And what was really cool is like we went to the back and did our thing, and he came back and found us and just sat and talked and told us about he got to see Bud Powell play, and then from there he had a long association with Charles Mingus and things like that, like all of those things, and then that kind of comes out naturally. And I think that's the thing, like you got to get your stuff together musically so that you can communicate what you do. But I think like the ability to let people know on the bandstand that it's truly about a community. Like I'm just not a fan of doing this thing to get noticed and to be famous. Like it's really nice to receive recognition for work, and especially like I'm really proud of this big band record. But if we wanted a different path, if I wanted to get more notoriety, I would have maybe chosen something different. But for me, the ability and to create that with a group of friends or colleagues that we come together and make something, that's more special to me than saying like, oh man, I recorded this great album with. Even though that's cool and I like that stuff, to me at this stage in my life, like the community is way more important.
So, what do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What motivates you to evolve and love making music?
Um, I, I mean, you're never a lot of things. I I am a creator, and for me, I think it's like that's probably the number one thing that gets me going the most. It's that, hey, I wrote this tune, or hey, I have an opportunity to improvise on this thing and make something here. That for me is what it is. And then, secondary, we like to do that in front of people. But in terms of like being, I'm not I'm not showy. I mean, one of my favorite Cedar Walton quotes is like he said, "I want to be skilled in the background." And this kind of leads me to the second point, which is maybe it should be number one actually for me. But like I really love to get in there with the rhythm section and make it sound and feel great. And I love to do that behind a soloist. Like my number one goal is how can I do that and make it feel so good behind your solo to where you do that. And a little like I think writing for big band for me is an extension of that.
You know, the one thing I'm going to hone in on feeling good, the thing about music, especially jazz, is it gives you that escape. It gives you that warmth of just getting into kind of this cocoon of letting the world melt away. And right now in America, we're going through a lot of stress between wars and immigration, everything that's going on. Are you thinking more about not only you as a unit on stage making music, but everybody in the crowd? Are you thinking about giving people a little bit of that comfort with music? It just tends to be the social glue we need in different epochs of American history. It's always been artists and musicians that have held us in sway so we don't drift too far away from what we know we are. Are you thinking about that more now?
Um, I think I'd be lying if I said it didn't, if it wasn't part of my daily thoughts. Um, and I think, when I go on stage, the bandstand is sacred, and so I'm I'm not necessarily like all I'm trying to do is if there's one person or 100, I'm trying to find a way to connect with as many people as possible. And for me, the way that I do that is just to try to play as well as I can, and should try to make it groove and feel good. And if I'm playing in a real from an honest space, I can do that. And those are the things I think, like those conversations you have after a set where somebody comes up and they're really moved by what you've done. I think that's how I do it. Yeah, I think about all that, all the time. It's really sad. uh, and yeah, but I also think that, like you said, I mean, we need art more than ever now.
Yeah, we certainly do. So let me ask you this: if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one jazz show, where are you going to go? What would you love to see?
Man.
It's an unfair question because maybe you want to do a whole lot, like a whole week.
Yeah, I sure do want to do a whole lot. I think I think I would like to see um, some of the. I think I want to see Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie.
Yeah.
I want to see, you know, bebop really getting started. They're coming off their dance band gigs. We're on 52nd Street and and that thing. Because I don't know if this is we teach this and talk about it in the history books, but I I just it seems like people's ears weren't ready for that
Right.
when it happened, and I think to kind of like that's akin to like when people heard Stravinsky's Rite of Spring or something like I, we hear so much in the world now that I don't know if we always process that, but like to me that would, if I had to pick one, I guess I would pick that.
You know, it's interesting. I think about that with spirituality and divinity. I don't think we have enough of our brain capacity to understand the big thing like bebop when it happens. Like our brain, I don't think has enough open. Like now we've had enough time. You know, what's interesting, that Massey Hall show I found out a few years ago was sparsely populated because there was a big boxing match that was happening. in Canada at the time. So, yeah, I mean, but that was the show, man. I mean, that was one. If you went back in that time machine, you're going there. You're going to Massey Hall, and you're going to see them that whole lineup of people. You know,
Yeah.
so um, it's wild. So let me ask you this: at the end of the day, Ben, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, everyone on the bandstand, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I, I think I'm a, I'm a nice human being who works hard, and I think, I've got a pretty good, a strong sense of melody and rhythm and the ability to swing. Um, but I think what I like about myself the most is that, like, I I'm proud of each one of my projects because I get better. And that's when I wake up in the morning. I mean, you want to know what really gets me up, and this isn't music, this is just life. Like, I am gonna be a better person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be better at X, Y, and Z. And those are kind of the goals that I set for myself, whether they be long term or on the daily.
So, if anybody wants to catch you live or they want to get a copy of the album, is Bandcamp the best place to do that? Or
Um, it's let's see, it's on my website. It's also streaming, everywhere. And yeah, also the record label Origin Arts
yes,
or OA2, they've got it there too. So.
okay. And then live shows. Anything else coming up in the warm months?
Yeah, I'm gonna be playing in this month. I'll be playing Wednesdays trio at Nocturne Jazz and Supper Club in Denver, and I'm leading that group with a couple of good friends, Drew Heller on drums, Matt Smiley on bass, and then on Friday I'm part of a quintet led by a tenor saxophonist, Peter Summer, and that's also at Nocturne.
So, do you ever come to Kansas City? You obviously had a rendezvous. You had a lot of time here. Is this ever a place on your radar to come back to?
Yeah, it's been a few years. I I feel like, man, it might have. I think it was after COVID. I played the Blue Room a few times. I what's a couple of, like, definitely before COVID. I think I played the Black Dolphin,
Yep. Black
and
Dolphin.
then way like I did some things not regularly, but a couple times a year at Jardines.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just yeah, I always loved getting back there and got friends and family in that area. So
Right on. Well, Ben, it was great to meet you. Thank you so much for talking about the album. And the one thing I want to ask before we get out here, what are you hoping people get from this new big band album, Tuesday Morning Feeling?
oh, um, I don't. What do I hope that they get out of this? Um, all of the all of the great melodies are not written yet, and swing is not dated. Like, it it still feels just as great as it did, and um, yeah, I think just that feeling about, hey, look, this is, you can create this kind of music, and it can feel good, and it can be enjoyable to listen to, and it can uplift you.
I love it. Ben, I will put all these links in the show notes. So great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. Best of luck with the album and everything else. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Bye.
Yes, sir.
Neon Jazz.